Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome back to the channel, and a happy new year to everybody out there, and to everyone that sent well wishes for 2024 and wished my grandmother a happy birthday with a big celebration last weekend. I just want to say thanks to everyone that got in touch. Yeah, it means a lot to us. We had a great weekend. So 2024 off to a bang. It's been a very, very busy year so far. Very, very busy week, I should say. Yeah, a lot of new registrations going out for the new year. A lot of stuff to get ready. I had no video on Thursday. I've been spending a lot of time getting this video ready amongst other ones. So put a lot of effort into the Ferguson videos. So that's what this weekend, this video is about, the Ferguson 35, just a brief talk through its history, a couple of the different models. And yeah, we'll just take it from the start. So yeah, you're all very welcome back to the channel. So yes, the little 35. Moving on from our last video that we done on Ferguson on the TE20. So yeah, back out into the 1950s, the mid 1950s now, 1953. And a team led by Herman Clem in the United States started developing the new model for Ferguson known as the TO35. So that was to replace the TO30. So Clem wrote to Harry Ferguson in July that year to tell him about the features of the new TO35, but Ferguson wasn't overly happy with the project, so he ordered work to stop until things could be reviewed, plans could be looked over, design especially. So Clem wrote another article setting out his plans for the tractor. It was a 23 or 4 page dossier of technical specifications and stuff for the tractor. So Ferguson changed his mind and allowed the development to continue. So we're looking at a time now. I suppose it was a golden time for tractors, for machinery, the 1950s, 1960s. So we had come out of the war. We were out of the war. Economy was starting to boom again. Things were really starting to happen. There was, I suppose, it was the last of the era of, say, that before technology took over. Things were a lot simpler through the 50s and 60s. Machinery was simpler. There was a lull in that sort of time. It's hard to describe what the zeitgeist might have been. You can imagine it. It was probably an easier time. It was the last of the tractors with no cabs. 35 was one of the last mass-produced tractors that didn't come with a cab. You move into the 60s and 70s then, with the 100 series with the David Browns. You had import tractors then coming onto the market, the John Deeres and stuff coming onto the market. Your Case and that was starting to take over. You had a lot more technology. So I suppose the 50s and 60s was the last of a sort of a golden age of machines, and the 35 in particular and the 65, they epitomized that kind of open cab out in the countryside, tipping around the county, the country roads, with the wind in your hair. And there was less pressure, I suppose, back then. You might have had a fleet of lads working in the field with a couple of 35s or half a dozen 35s or whatever, whereas now it's all bigger machinery, bigger implements, less workers, and a lot more pressure. So yeah, although Ferguson had merged with Massey Harris to form the Massey Ferguson Company in 1953, the TO35, it was marketed under the Ferguson name to start with. So the new Ferguson 35 was launched in the United States on the 5th of January 1955, a year earlier actually than I had planned. So yeah, it was initially available in 2 models, so the standard and deluxe. Now this is the United States still that we're talking about. It was initially available in 2 models, standard and deluxe, with a third utility available in 1956. Despite not being designed for industrial use, it became popular among industrial users at the time. The colour scheme was changed from the all grey that we were used to seeing in the little grey Fergies to a beige shell and wheels with a grey body in May 1956. In 1957, the scheme changed again when the TO35 was rebranded in the standard Massey red and grey that we all know. However, the wording on the tractor continued to be Ferguson until February 1960. Now, when you look at the colour, how the colour changed from red to grey, that was the coming together of the Massey Harris company. So coming together with the Massey Harris company. So you had Ferguson, which was typically grey. You had your Massey Harris then, which were the Harris were predominantly red. So they would have been red. So the coming together of the two companies, you had red and grey that we still have today. So moving over to the United Kingdom now, that we're the European market that we're all more familiar with. Most of my viewers are more familiar with. Though we do have a lot of viewers on here from the United States. So hello to everyone across the pond, across the Atlantic, Canada and America. It's always great to hear from you. So in the United Kingdom, the MF35 was launched on the 1st of October 1956 at Grosvenor House Hotel in London. It was originally marketed as the Ferguson 35, so the FE35, Ferguson Europe 35, as it is known from our previous videos. It was built, of course, at Massey Ferguson's factory at Banner Lane in Coventry. The first FE35, serial number 1001, was produced on the 27th of August that year. So the FE35 was the successor to the much-loved TE20, which ceased production in the same year. Whilst the TE20 had been an all-grey tractor, earning its nickname the Little Grey Fergie, the FE35, so the first of them, had a grey shell and grey wheels with a bronze finish for the bodies. Now, this tractor, an iconic, beautiful looking little tractor, come on to be known as the Gold Belly. So that would have been the very first of any of them you see with a gold belly. The FE35, that was the very, very first. So between 1956-57, before they changed to the red and grey. They are fantastic looking. You see them now, some of them that are restored. So just the colour, just the pop on it. I think they are one of the most beautiful, iconic looking tractors ever produced. So yeah, there was three types of these, the FE35, three types of these were produced. You had the agricultural, the industrial and the vineyard. So, although there was only a small number of the vineyard made, they were still available. The industrial model was designed for compliance with the Road Traffic Act of 1947, and it included a driving mirror and a high-frequency horn. So moving on to 1957, after 73,655 units had been produced, the tractor was rebranded as the MF35 that we all came to know and love, and the colour scheme was changed to the now famous red and grey. In 1959, Massey Ferguson purchased the Perkins Engine Company in the UK, and they began using a new diesel Perkins engine in the MF35. The deluxe models were also produced. They had a dual clutch, that was allowing the user to disengage the rear wheels while keeping the power takeoff and the hydraulic pump engaged. So it was a great bonus, and it was ideal for certain implements. So yeah, of course, this 3-cylinder Perkins diesel engine went on to become the backbone of the little 35 and later on the 135. So it was the A3 152 3-cylinder Perkins diesel, which is just phenomenal compared to the engines that were available up until that stage. The standard engines that they had their issues with starting from cold and stuff like that. With the kerosene and then the TVO engines, when it came to the diesel, this just accelerated sales. It was a game changer in terms of performance and starting ability and torque. And anybody that has driven or has a 135 or a 35 with this particular engine in it, it's just, if you look after them, they are bulletproof. They're a fantastic little engine. So the next development, the next major step in the lifespan of the 35 came in 1962 when Massey Ferguson upgraded the MF35 to create the 35X. So the 35X, the biggest selling point of the model was you had more power from your diesel engine, which was boosted now to 44 horsepower, something along that lines at 2,250 RPM. Customers also had an option to specify a differential lock, and all but the earliest examples got safety mudguards, which extended right down to the fixings on the the rectangular foot plate. So it was safer. Your legs were completely separated from the rotating wheels, so they were much safer. It's also worth noting that the fact that the multi-power became available as an option on dual clutch 35X's doubling the number of gears from 12 forward to 4 reverse gears at that stage. So the multi-power, obviously, fantastic system that Massey had produced. Once you knew how to use it and use it properly, because an inexperienced user using multi-power on a hill will know all about it fairly quickly if they don't know what they're doing. So yeah, maybe I'll do a separate video someday about multi-power. I'd love to do a video on stripping one down, telling people exactly how it works and how they're serviceable, what you can do to them, because it is a fantastic system. And a lot of people buy Ferguson's 35s and 65 and 165s with multi-power not working, and they never bother doing anything with it. They just leave it and they don't bother, and they are quite a simple system and very simple to overhaul and to repair. So there are plenty of good videos out there already that show videos on that. So yeah, that gave the driver obviously the ability to change ratios while on the move and under load, which is obviously anyone that drives tractors knows how fantastic it is to be able to change gears without having the clutch to keep the momentum. One other advantage was for road use. So the top speed actually of a multi-power equipped MF35X was over 22.5 miles per hour. So that's hitting nearly 40 kilometers an hour. And if you had the right size wheels in the back of it, some people put bigger wheels in them. These were a flyer of a thing. Compared to the standard, which was just over 16 miles an hour. So if you think about it, 32.5 miles, 25 mile an hour is 40 kilometers an hour. 22.5 miles an hour is not too far off 40 kilometers an hour. And then if you have the right wheels in the back of it and a little bit of tinkering, these things were flyers on the road. So other options made available to the 35X buyer then was included, you had a full lighting set, you had a swing and drawbar, you had wheel weights, you had dual rear wheel kit, and your automatic pickup hitches. Both the MF35 and the 35X, they were great sellers. A Massey Ferguson, and over the production life that spanned 9 years from 1956 to 1964 in Banner Lane, they produced almost 390,000 units, which is, it's incredible. In Banner Lane, just slightly below 390,000. So the Banner Lane factory, they continued to supply kits to foreign manufacturers until the 24th of December, so Christmas Eve on 2002. By the time production of these kits ceased, over 3,307,996 tractors or kits had been built at the factory in Banner Lane, which it's incredible to think that. Serious. And according to Michael Thorne, and Michael Thorne is, to me, he's one of the, experts when it comes to Ferguson. So if you have an FE20, if you have a little grey Fergie, a T20, if you've got a 35 or 135, any of the 100 series, if you're into those tractors and you want a bit of information on Michael Thorne's books, go on to Amazon and look up Michael Thorne. His books are incredible. They're brilliant. They're full of information. They're full of pictures. They're a brilliant read. And I have to say, most of the information that I get from my from the T20 video, from the Ferguson 35 video, and for the 100 series video is coming from Michael Thorne. And I also like to mention the Ferguson Club as well. A lot of it comes from the Ferguson Club and from Heritage Machines, from their website. A lot of great information, and I try to stick to those 3 or 4 different sources of information, because it is always going to be accurate. You can go onto Wikipedia and you can get some crazy stuff. It's just that anybody can type in. It's worth staying away from. So yeah, Michael Thorne is quoted as saying that it's not an exaggeration to say that there is no other tractor design in the history of the world that has contributed more to feeding the world, which is, that's true. It goes without saying. And it's worth noting then that in other countries, so TAF in India, TAFE in India, huge Indian company, they bought a license to build MF35s in 1960 and continued manufacturing them until 2002. So they would have built quite a few, as you can imagine, for the Indian market. Yugoslavian firm Industry of Machinery and Tractors, they bought a license to build Massey Ferguson tractors, marketing the MF35 as the IMT 533 and the IMT 539. And in 2014, variants of the MF35 were still being built in India, Pakistan and Turkey. which, you know, is a credit to the design of the tractor. And another piece of information that people probably don't know, a lot of people might know, but those of you that, you know, don't look too much on the internet might know that in 2015, actually, AGCO, who own Massey Ferguson and Fendt, and, you know, a lot of huge companies, they actually relaunched the MF35. So the MF35 is still being built to this day by Massey Ferguson. Now, it's been built, I believe it's been built in India by Massey Ferguson. So you can go onto their website. Now, I'm not sure if it'll show it for the Irish market. It probably won't. But if you go onto the Massey Ferguson website and click into your region in the world, the East African market, you know, the MF35 is there for sale. It's listed, and when you look at it, it's the exact same as the MF35 was back in 1950, in the 50s. So red and grey, and it's nicknamed as the People's Tractor. So it probably would be a budget tractor in India. Now, it is built by Massey Ferguson. It has a Simpson engine. I believe it's 3-cylinder, of course. I think it's a 2.5 litre. Now, anyone that knows Simpson engines, if you're involved with engines, they're huge, you know, you might think, oh, it's an Indian engine, it's probably crap, but, you know, they are a huge engine manufacturer. They build engines for boats and, you know, excavators and industrial equipment and generators. You know, they run a lot of things. A lot of companies use their engine. So that is it. So it's great to actually see that it's still out there. The little MF35 is still out there. Massey Ferguson have given it a new lease of life under the Massey Ferguson brand. A beautiful tractor. Probably one of the most iconic, along with the T20 and the 100 series. So just of that era, you know, above any other, they stand out with the technology that they had at the time. The draft control, the position control, ease of operation, and they were a fun little tractor to drive. They are a fun little tractor with a fantastic engine, of course. So that is it for the 35. If you have a 35, again, I'd like to ask, if you have a 35, if you've got one from India, if you've got one from Pakistan, if you've got one from Turkey, if you've got one of the more modern ones made by Massey Ferguson, I'd love to hear from you. If you worked for Banner Lane, if you worked at Banner Lane, if you're involved in the design, the build, anything got to do with them, please drop a like or a comment into the comment section. If you know anyone that might be interested in watching the video, please share it. Please share it with them. I'm gonna, you know, do my best to, you know, do these tractors as much justice as I can. The next video will be the next clip will be on the Ferguson 65. So if you sit tight, we'll get into that pretty soon. So just a quick note on the 65. I'm not going to spend too long on it. So the 65 obviously was the bigger brother of the 35, although it paled into significance in popularity terms. And I suppose when they were designing the 65, they had the 100 series in mind, because the 65 wasn't introduced until 1957, 58, and went out of production in 64. So it really had a short production run, a 6-year production run before the introduction of the 100 series. So what they would have been doing, the introduction then of the 4-cylinder engine, the A4192, and the more popular then the AD4203 that went on to be in the 165, the Mark 165, and that they would have been testing out these engines. You know, there was quite a few of them made. Like the Mark 1, it was introduced in 57, obviously. It had 50 horsepower. That was the Mark 1, the 4-cylinder engine. There was 21,358 of these made in various factories across the world. Before the Mark 2 was introduced in 1960. So it had an increased power output. It was 57 horsepower roughly. And something like 14,000 of these were made before production ceased in 1964. The Mark II then would have had the multi-power in 1962, and which a further 15,000 of these are made. So it had a short production run. It had the unit numbers were obviously very low compared to the 35, but I do believe that they were looking forward to the 100 series, the design of the 100 series. So you had your bigger 4-cylinders, then you had your 165, your 168, your 175, 178, 188. and the 165 would have been leading towards these bigger tractors, gently easing guys into the more horsepower, the 4 cylinders, coming with cabs then and stuff as well. So yeah, there was a relatively small production number of these compared to the 35, but they're now very, very collectible because there was a small amount of them made. They're they're making well over 10 grand. Good clean ones are making well over 10,000. And it's believed that prices obviously will rise in them. It's hard to get one. The bonnets on them are hard to get. Certain panels on them are hard to get. So if you're looking to buy one, try and get one that has a bonnet or has a bonnet that's repairable, because I think if you go looking for them, they're very, very hard got, especially to try and get an original bonnet. But they were a very, very capable tractor. They were very popular, and they are very popular now with collectors. Obviously, they weren't as popular as the smaller tractors, but I do believe that they had it in mind going forward to the 100 series, that this was the 65 was like a test bench, testing ground for the bigger tractors, for using bigger implements and stuff like that going forward. So look, that's all I'm going to say about the 65. There's not a whole lot more to it. Obviously the 35 was a much more iconic little tractor around the world than still is today. So that's it. Yeah, again, if you have a 65, 35, anything, give us a shout, drop us a comment. I'll be back later in the week. I'm going to do another one on Chamberlain, the second part of the Chamberlain series. We'll have a brief look at the Chamberlain tractor models. Hopefully have that video out for this Thursday. So until then, enjoy the weekend. It's a beautiful weekend over here in Galway. The sun is shining, the skies are clear, and it's a little bit nippy, but it's better than the rain, that's for sure. So yeah, have a safe week, everybody, and I will talk to you all very soon.